In days of old, back before even like the Atari 2600, King Arthur and his knights used to sit around their round table. It was round so that no knight sat at the head of the table. No knight held precedence over another, a symbol of their equality and mutual respect. Well, I stole their table. Yeah, I have their actual table. It's in my garage. At least the guy who sold it to me told me it was the real thing. But whatever, it's mine now. And now I'm the king. And I've gathered all the best retro emulation nerds to my court to talk about retro games. Check out this amazing ensemble that I've brought together. We have the Phawx, Stubbs from Retro Handhelds, Retro Breeze, Joey's Retro Handhelds, Retro Game Corps, special guest Too Loud Tech, Adin Walls, the Retro Tech Dad, Mr. Sujano, special guest Clef from Game Tech Talk, and me, TechDweeb. Hello, this is the second video in this mini-series. In the first video, we talked about our personal retro hidden gems. That was a hoot. I'll drop a link to that video in the doodad below. And there are several more videos in this series in the works, so get subscribed if you haven't yet so you don't miss those. The topic of discussion today is, what is our favorite system to emulate? Man, what an interesting topic that I came up with. You're welcome, by the way. So let's hear from our retro nerds on this, but since this is a roundtable and we don't pick favorites here in the royal court of my mom's basement, let's let fate decide. And by fate, I mean my toque full of names. Starting with, kicking it off with a bang, the Phawx. Hey, buddy.
Hey.
Man, I'm excited to hear what you have to say on this. So what's your favorite system to emulate and why?
Honestly, it's hard for me to pick. It really is hard for me to pick. Ultimately, I think I would settle on Super Nintendo or PlayStation 1. I would probably lean more on PlayStation 1. And the reason why is you have PGXP type of stuff, so you can do the correction of the wobbly graphics. Some people like that, the wobbly graphics. I tend to like it when it's fixed. I can go either way. Sometimes if I'm really feeling nostalgic, I want it to have the wobbly graphics, but being able to do like widescreen patches very easily on PS1 as well as fixing that, it kind of just makes it feel like a modern remake. You can just like instantly modern remake any game on emulating PlayStation 1 games. So I'm going to say PlayStation 1, especially because it has such a big library. A lot of retro handhelds can run PlayStation 1 emulation fairly easily. So it's often any type of potato can run PlayStation 1 emulation, so I'm going to go with PlayStation 1 emulation.
Man, that's an amazing point. Upscaling and perspective correction. That's one of the best parts about emulation right there, giving us the ability to play our favorite games in new ways, right? Let's see, who's next? Retro Breeze. Hey, Shem.
What?
So we were just talking about our favorite systems to emulate. What's yours?
My favorite retro system to emulate is definitely the Nintendo Wii. The Wii had a massive catalog of games, many of which were really creative and innovative. But wagging that Wii remote around all the time just wasn't very fun. Take for example Sonic and the Black Knight. In this game you literally just wag the Wii remote around like crazy to swing Sonic's sword. But it just wasn't very accurate and it made the game really difficult to play. But when you emulate this device, for example on the Adin 2, you can map the Wii remote swings to the right analog stick. And suddenly this becomes an amazingly fun game to play. And it's actually taken this game from just kind of a write-off on Wii to one of my favorite Sonic games in the entire franchise when I emulate it like this. And I think it's really great to revisit this gargantuan library of Wii games in a new format that just makes them more accessible and overall just more fun.
You're right, it's not hard to bind your own controls and play those games. And yeah, there are so many good Wii games. That's a freaking awesome answer, buddy.
What?
Nothing. And then we have, oh, nice. It's our first special guest and fellow Canadian. Oh yeah, what? You think you're funny? You're not going to fool anyone with that disguise, you know. Just introduce yourself, you nerd.
Hello, it's Clef from Game Tech Talk.
Hey buddy. All right, let's hear it. What's your favorite system to emulate?
My favorite system to emulate, that's a hard question. I love them all, but I do have an answer. PlayStation 1, without a doubt. And the reason might surprise you. As I'm sure many of you know, Nintendo originally contracted Sony to create the successor to the SNES, which was codenamed PlayStation X. And They eventually scrapped the project with Sony. They went their own way and made Nintendo 64, but Sony decided not to scrap all the effort that they had put in, and they made their own console, which was PlayStation. And that's how Sony entered the market. Now, the PlayStation was not anywhere near as strong enough to create 3D modeling like the N64, so Sony had to employ a bunch of different techniques to be able to create that 3D effect. And so the reason why it's the system I like the most is whenever you put these games in modern day emulators, what you get if you upscale the resolution and texture is completely different than what it looked like at the time. And oftentimes you can even find details that you could never see on the original system. And I think that's an amazing way to re-experience these games. And for that reason, definitely PlayStation 1, and I love JRPGs as well.
Man, good answer. I feel like there's going to be lots of PS1 answers today, which is good because you can emulate PS1 on freaking anything. Moving along, who do we have here? Hey, Mr. Sujano. Hi, buddy.
How's it going?
I'm freaking awesome. Thanks for asking. And thanks for taking a break from camping to be here. So what do you think? Do you have a favorite system to emulate?
That is a really tough question to answer. I mean, I use a whole bunch of different emulators for a whole bunch of different systems in a whole bunch of different situations. And my answer would vary based on where I'm gaming. If I'm at home on my computer, it's probably PlayStation 2 and PCSX2. The PlayStation 2 has a massive library and I can game for hours on end. If I'm on my phone, it's probably going to be Game Boy or Game Boy Color, considering there's just a few buttons and it's simple and straightforward on a touchscreen. And if I've got a handheld, it's probably the SNES or maybe even PlayStation 1 or Nintendo 64, depending on the handheld, or Game Boy Advance.
Yeah, that's true. Different emulators for different situations. Although the nerdy part of me loves the idea of emulating original Game Boy on a gaming PC connected to a 70-inch 4K TV. but that's kind of silly, I guess. I don't know if you'd ever do that sort of thing. Yeah, never mind. Sorry. And next, but not least, is going to be, hey, special guest, Too Loud Tech.
Hey, General Dweeb.
Hey, buddy. What you got there? Root beer?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, stop. You're making me jealous and thirsty. Here, you answer the question, and I'm going to go get a drink too. Favorite retro systems to emulate? Go.
That's actually super easy. My favorite system to emulate of all time has to be Game Boy Advance, and the reason is easy. It just has such a large catalog. It's vast. It has so many different genres: side scrollers, platformers, puzzle games, beat 'em ups, shoot 'em ups, RPGs. The list doesn't end. I mean, Pokemon, Mario, Donkey Kong, Metroid. So many good games I've enjoyed for a very, very long time. It floods me with nostalgic memories, and I love the art style of Game Boy Advance. It takes me back to a time when I had so little to worry about. I had so little responsibility, and it's just easily by far my favorite, especially the fact that you can run it on basically anything. Most of the handhelds that we play today are more than capable. An old phone, an old tablet, an old computer. Game Boy Advance all the way, bar none. Thanks.
Dude, GBA, freaking awesome system to emulate. And I'm not bitter at all that you got to give my answer before I did. That's fine. And then emerging from my hat is the elusive Retro Game Corpse. He's not elusive at all. Hey, Russ. Nice to see you, buddy.
Hey, everybody.
Good to see you, dude. All right, let's hear it. What's your favorite retro system to emulate?
Growing up, we had the NES and Sega Genesis, and I love to emulate those games because they remind me of my childhood. But the system that I always wanted was the Super Nintendo. We didn't have it. I got it later on in life, like as an adult, but that was one of the things I just always wanted to have, and I would play over at friends' houses. And so I love emulating Super Nintendo games, mostly because, yes, it gives me that nostalgic feeling of my childhood, but then also it's like a little checkbox that I'm marking off on my bucket list, and that I'm able to play these games that I always wanted to as a kid. So in addition to the nostalgia, there's like a satisfaction of being able to play these games that I always wanted back then. And the Super Nintendo catalog is huge. We've got platformers and sports games and role-playing games. There's so many different types of games that you can play, and the graphics look amazing. I think it's like the peak 16-bit era is just the colors and the vibrancy of playing Super Nintendo games. So yeah, that one's a lot of fun to play.
Yeah, I think that's probably the answer that most retro gamers are going to give. It's hard to argue with the Super Nintendo. That thing is legendary, right? Yeah, it is. Okay, coming up next is TechDweeb. That's me. Hi, TechDweeb. Hello. Hey, you cool stud. So are you like my alter ego? Or like a past or future version of me or something? What? I just mean because there's two of us, you know? Oh, maybe I'm like your conscience or something. Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, what about like your evil twin? We could do an evil twin villain arc or something. That is a freaking awesome idea. Can you do an evil villain laugh? Perfect. Alright, so I've talked about this many times on my channel, but my favorite system to emulate is also my favorite retro system to play, Game Boy Advance. It's because of the games, which are amazingly good. And the reason for this is multifactorial, whatever that means. GBA games are from like a golden era of retro gaming. This is because the GBA came out at the dawn of the GameCube era for Nintendo. So by that point, game designers had learned a lot about how to make good games with good game mechanics. The games were designed with a more sophisticated game design philosophy that feels a lot more like the games that we have releasing today. However, the GBA was a portable system, and this is back in 2001, before we had lots of higher-end portable gaming options, and because of that, the processing power of the device and also the screen resolution were quite limiting. And by this point in game development history, we had more or less mastered pixel art. We knew all the tricks of what looks good and what doesn't. The games look like old pixely retro games but feel like modern games. And also the GBA had a long run and it was easy to develop for. Cheap for developers to release games for, and so there were a bazillion games for that system. Also, it's a 3x2 system, which is my favorite aspect ratio. But that's a whole nother topic that I won't get into today. You may have stopped me this time, TechDweeb, but you'll regret that. Next time, TechDweeb, next time! Oh, wait, I thought I was the evil one. Oh, really? Well, I don't know, this was your idea. Yeah, it needs some work. Well, let's put a pin in that. Back in the hat. Who do we got? Hey, Adin Walls.
Hello.
Good to see ya. So, what about you? What's your favorite system to emulate?
My favorite system to emulate is definitely 3DS. It's probably one of the hardest systems to emulate. They're still struggling to get some of the games to play, but I really enjoy it because I never got to play it growing up. So now I get to play 3DS. There's such a wonderful library. The graphics boggle my mind how they managed to get such good graphics in those days. And it's also nice to go back to the OG hardware because it is so beautiful.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, the 3DS had an amazing library. Tons of great games on there. Next up, Rob the Retro Tech Dad. Hey, Rob.
Hi, everyone.
All right, out with it. You've got a favorite retro system to emulate?
Probably some of my favorite ones would have to be PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3. Sega Saturn is a really good one to emulate just because the hardware is really hard to get access to. The games are really, really expensive, so for sure emulation in terms of Sega Saturn is definitely a nice benefit. When it comes to like PlayStation 2, I just love the fact that we can take the games and upscale them, and those graphics will just really shine through because of that. And you know what? A lot of the PlayStation 2 games really hold up really well today. So, you know, for me, it's just so much fun to see what emulation can do for pretty much all the platforms out there. And so, you know, it's a really tough thing to choose, but for me, for sure, PlayStation 2, PlayStation 3, and Sega Saturn would be my top choices.
Yeah, the PS2 library is freaking enormous. You could have a lifetime of gaming with that one system alone. The hat is telling me that next we're gonna hear from Stubbs. Hey, Stubbs. Thanks for joining us.
All right, I'm here for the interview. I'm in.
Oh, you're in a hotel, huh?
Coming to you live from Taipei, Taiwan. Hello.
Oh, cool. Well, thanks for taking time out of your busy schedule. Yeah, some important stuff going on over there, I bet. Okay, so I'm curious, Stubbs. What's your favorite system to emulate?
Definitely the PlayStation 1. For some reason, just that is magic to me. That was my nostalgia system growing up.
That was the one that really called me to come back to it over and over again. Early games like Twisted Metal and Tomb Raider, so good. And I loved almost every era of the PS1, from the early days, really clunky graphics, Tekken, Battle Arena Toshinden, like those early games. Move ahead in time, and you have games like Star Ocean 2, Final Fantasy 7 and 8, and then late in the life of PlayStation, post 2000 stuff, they were still knocking out some awesome games. Final Fantasy 9, man, the Siphon Filter series, I mean, come on. I love the polygons, I love the limitations of that technology, the 32-bit system, all of it. And in emulation, taking those polygons and upscaling to 4x, 5x, 4K, just to this day, I think it looks brilliant. The pixel art games don't hold up quite as much for me, but they're still awesome. And the demo discs for PlayStation 1 were some of the coolest things. I love collecting demo discs, and I would play those demos over and over again. Some of the early ones like PlayStation Pix and the sampler CDs, and all the little Easter eggs in there. PlayStation Underground, remember that? That was so cool.
Yes, those demo discs. I had a ton of those. I think it was my friend who worked at a bookstore who used to give them to me. He got them for free or something. I don't know. I had a ton of them. You unlocked a memory for me. All right, I'll let you get back to your trip. I know you're a busy guy. Only one name left. Who haven't we done yet? Joey, of course. Hey, Joey.
Hey.
Hey, thanks for being here. The question is, what is your favorite TechDweeb video? I mean, retro system to emulate.
Okay, so this is a very easy question. Game Boy Advance and Super Nintendo. Those are two of my absolute favorite systems to emulate and play because I think I probably have the most nostalgia for both of those. And I kind of have two devices that I emulate them on here. The Game Boy Advance SP clone from Amberdick and the RGB20SX from Powkitty. Been really enjoying playing both those systems on both these devices. But I play a lot of ROM hacks, and so Pokemon ROM hacks from Game Boy Advance or Super Mario World ROM hacks from SNES, all of these are my bread and butter, things I love to do. I think I'm playing 10 ROM hacks right now as we talk, where just going through all of the different ones, and they're all Pokemon, and you don't remember where you are, it's just Pokemon, you just keep playing. So that, for me, Game Boy Advance, Super Nintendo, that is absolutely my favorite systems to emulate.
Fellow GBA lover. What's that meme? I see you are a man of culture as well. And that's it. The hat is empty, which means that we're done here. That's all the best retro systems to emulate by your favorite retro emulation YouTube dweebs. Thank you so much to all our guests for being here, sharing your brain stuffs with all of us. I'll have links to all these amazing channels in the doodad below. And now it's your turn. Let's hear your answer. What's your favorite system to emulate and why? Let's get nerdy in the comments down there. And while you're down there, you might as well subscribe because there are more videos in this series coming very soon. And that brings us to the end. We talked about a bunch today. Let us know your thoughts about absolutely any of it in the comments below. If you like this video, leave a like. If you didn't like this video, leave a like. Hit that subscribe button, check out my other videos. Don't tempt fate. Save your... Oh, you're still here. Sorry.